You're going to see, I guarantee I'm going to have thousands of calls, thousands. They'll say, Chris, what kind of double bookkeeping are you doing? My market value went from 200 to 150, but what I'm paying taxes on, assessed value went up 3%. What gives? What are you doing? That's pretty slick. Drop my market value, but you jack up my assessed value, so I got to pay more taxes. Exactly. Go figure. It's because of that constitutional amendment. Until your market value drops to where your cap is, it's going to go up. We tried to get a bill passed that said in down years your cap does not go up. It stays where it is. However, Tallahassee does not leave me in charge for a day to let me make that decision, so it's did not pass this past legislative cycle. So we're encouraged that maybe next year it'll do it. I think they're waiting me out to see if the market will turn back around so they don't have to deal with it. But so far we've had 3 or 4 actually going. This is our 4th year on the down market, so we'll see. That little, you'll see something in the trim notice that talks about it. We call it the recapture rule. Affectionately, and we don't think it is legislatively correct, but we answer to the Department of Revenue, and they can come up with rules for property appraisers and guidelines. So we dub it the recapture rule, basically recapturing what they've lost to you guys, so they're going to get it back. And we don't like it. It's going to leave a bad taste in your mouths too. And I'm sure I'm going to get some phone calls, but at least you'll know when you see it, you heard it here. What's on the mind of everybody? BP oil spill. And what have we seen? Well, I will tell you there's not a lot of quantitative data out there yet to tell you that property values have fallen. Stigma, no doubt. Who wants to move to Escambia County because we're flush with jobs, right? I know I get a laugh out of that. No, people aren't moving here because we have these high-tech jobs or high-paying jobs. They're moving here for quality of life or the beach. If the beach and the ability to go fishing, and it's the Dead Sea out there's no sea life and you can't go on the beach, people aren't going to move here. Okay? We know definitely there's an impact to the tourist community. By the way, tourist community and economic engine is about 14% of our economic base in Escambia County. We know May was good. Oil spill occurred the 20th of April. We know May was good for those guys out on the beach. Diddy Key as well as Pensacola Beach. Literally unaffected. Come June 23rd, we had the physical impact. July 4th looked like mid-December out of Pensacola Beach. It's a ghost town. July, they had one bright spot, and that was Blue Angels. They're trying to recoup in August. You've seen stuff about, play it local, bring in the bands, do anything they can to try to salvage the last month of the season. I will tell you that those 2 barrier islands make 80%, if you're a small business owner out there, hamburger stand, restaurant, sailboat rentals, whatever, motels, you make 80% of your revenue stream in that 3-month window. July is 40 of the 80. So you can see, if you look, if we had this in the dead of winter, we wouldn't even be talking about it. South Florida legislators don't understand that because guess what? When's their season?
All year.
Pretty much all year, heavily in the winter, but you're right, they can make money all year. We can't. We're trying to send that message to them. We had a special legislative session that myself and Greg Brown, the property appraiser of Santa Rosa County, we've asked for property tax relief for those affected businesses. We were hoping they would, Governor Chris called this special session, we would hope he would expand the call to include some type of property tax relief for the affected properties. However, all he wanted to talk about at the time was the drilling ban within state waters. Legislature and he are out of favor. They're just beating each other up. A lot of political gamemanship going on. And I hate to see that for our folks because I feel we suffer, or our people suffer because of that gamemanship going on. What happened in the session? I went up there, they gavelled in, gavelled out, meaning they were forced to come in. They said, we're in session, we're out of session, adios. They left. Now what did Chris do to combat that? Basically, he gave an executive order to property appraisers in the 26 affected counties, including ours, because we're probably the most heavily impacted in Florida, that says, what we want you to do, we want property appraisers to provide interim assessments to those property owners that are affected so they can take it to BP for a claim. Yeah, it is kind of jokingly funny because basically he's providing a public service off the backs of the local resources that you pay taxes on to fund my office. I already told you our budget's down 35%, personnel down 20%. We are now fixing to mail out, I told you where trim notices are going out. That's one of our busiest times of year. To saddle my office and staff with what he's tasked us with. You know, one of the reporters from, I think, Bloomberg asked me, well, what are you going to do? Well, what we're going to do, we're going to provide our public something. I'm not sure that Ken Feinberg is going to pay anything based on what a property appraiser gives them. We'll see. Data is not ripe yet. We're going to probably be November getting data together, looking at all sources of data, bits of data, and there's not going to be anything definitive. It's not going to look like the appraisal you take to the bank where I got 3 sales and say, oh, there's the oil spill effect. It won't be that way. We'll have to do some studies and come up with some scenarios and then caveat it heavily. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. But we will provide something. I wish they would have asked the property appraisers first before he did it. The press asked me, did the governor consult you? You know, I got to be very careful. The answer was, no, sir, he did not. And we're probably the most affected county in the state of Florida. What do you think about that? I said, well, what I think is he doesn't consult me on anything else, so this is probably no different. So I, got to be really careful. He probably could be your next senator, so I don't want to cross swords with something that we may need down the road. But the BP spill, we will be providing something. We do see some instances. We know there's sales that are falling through because of it. We know that motels bookings are down anywhere from 30 to 50%. We know that sales volume on the Key and Pensacola Beach in May and June compared to last year, we haven't got July numbers in yet, are down 30 and 35% respectively. So there is something. We don't know definitively what it is yet, but we're going to try. Now people say, well, I own a house in Cantonment, or I own a farm in Century. I got oil-soaked corn pulled up in like acid rain. I don't know all that. I don't know if I can stretch the damage definitively any further than the waterfront, barrier islands in the waterfront or in Pensacola and the water-influenced properties. Maybe so. I'm getting a lot of calls from North Hill and East Hill. I don't know yet. The answer is I don't know, and nobody knows. So stay tuned. We're going to get something out. Last thing I want to talk to you about before I give it to you is homestead fraud. It's a pet peeve of mine. We bring back to the county over $40 million annually in taxable value due to homestead fraud. And you probably think, well, how do you do that? Well, we have a huge, especially on the Key and a lot of Pensacola Beach, where I would say the majority of the money comes from, and the amount of abuse because of the condominiums. Florida's a homestead state, and we used to get some, but when they came up with the Save Our Homes, and you cap those values, they live next door, I own it, I live there, I'm a Florida resident, and I bought it for $300,000, I'm paying taxes now on $400,000. You bought it for $300,000 the same year, but you live in Birmingham, and now it's $800,000. You're paying 3 times the taxes I am. You're trying to find a way to stop doing that. So you defraud the government, and we try to catch you. We have several mechanisms that we use, but what I will tell you, on the website now we've turned it loose that you can report. If you suspect somebody to have a homestead, it's real clear in the statute. You must own it, occupy it, and make it your permanent residence. You have to be a Florida resident. There is no dual residency. I'm a lawyer in Birmingham, but we come down here and stay 6 months, and I got my, my law practice, my driver's license, and don't. They will come down and try to get their license. They'll try to register to vote. They will do anything and everything they can to stop that. It is a first-degree misdemeanor. I would love to get it moved to a third-degree felony. Because if I get into the felony side, then if you're professionally licensed, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. It might curb it some. But what I will tell you is, they're stealing from you and me. Because it takes X dollars to run government. If that guy isn't paying his fair share, we're going to pick it up. So I don't make any bones about it. I try to go after them as aggressive as I can. And if any of you know that, especially people in the real estate business, I talk to the board of realtors, and if you're listing a piece of property and the guy you know lives in California and it has a homestead, or you're managing a piece of property and it's being rented out, and the guy lives in New Orleans, you can't have a homestead. You can't. The only person that can do that is active military. It's a special exemption for active military. They can rent their house out while they're on active duty, and I have no problem with that. So, anyway, I get off my soapbox. I ask any questions I can. Give me.
Clarify something, Chris. You said that with the assessed value that there was a 3% cap and it could rise if CPI rose, but up to that 3%. Okay, and you said that we can see our taxes going up this year. But having followed CPI through the markets, I thought CPI was basically flat to slightly negative.
Well, here's the catch on that. We get that from the Department of Revenue. We have several exemptions that are in those booklets that are tied to the CPI. It's their determination. We have some, and this is the double edge, we catch it for the Department of Revenue. On the part where your exemption, you can have this exemption based on your income. And your income rises every year. That ceiling or that floor rises every year CPI. So you can make 25 and still get the exemption. This year, the CPI was 3, you get a 3% bump in it, so you can qualify with a 3% increase in your income.